Well, this is interesting. Hardly surprising, but it is interesting. Steven Espinoza has revealed that Showtime had the opportunity to put on Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz 2 on pay-per-view, but they turned it down. You know, Espinoza several months ago was talking about loyalty and this, that, and the other. Now he has the opportunity to put on Deontay Wilder Ortiz rematch on pay-per-view. He turns it down. Where's his loyalty? Espinoza says that it didn't make financial sense, which tells you what? It tells you that Showtime are not in the business of taking big financial risks at this point. Fox appear to have overtaken them in the boxing market. But it also alludes to the fact that Deontay Wilder is still not a big name in the United States. Because if you're truly a big name, you're on pay-per-view, you know, unless you're on DAZN where it's a subscription service. But when Canelo was on HBO, and when Canelo was on Showtime, like 99% of his fights, championship fights after a certain time, were pay-per-view fights. He's a pay-per-view fighter, right? Anthony Joshua, when he was fighting in the UK, ever since the Dillian Whyte fight, he was pay-per-view. But with Deontay Wilder, well, they're still not sure if it's financially viable to put this guy on pay-per-view. And Eddie Hearn was recently asked about his opinion on why the Wilder-Ortiz rematch hasn't been formally announced yet, why we haven't had a press conference and all this kind of stuff. And he said, in his opinion, it's probably because they're struggling to get the money together. And based upon what Steven Espinoza has said, that would appear to be the case. That they've delayed formally announcing the venue and formally announcing the date, etc., because they're struggling to get the money together. Deontay Wilder has been WBC heavyweight champion for how many years now? And he's still struggling to put together pay-per-views. The Dominic Brazil fight wasn't a pay-per-view. The only pay-per-view that Deontay Wilder's done is a Tyson Fury fight. Without a dance partner like Fury, they're seriously struggling. Showtime wouldn't have turned it down if they felt like they were going to make a decent profit. They turned it down because they feel like they can't make a decent profit, and it's a big financial risk. Deontay Wilder, once again I have to say this, he should have taken the Anthony Joshua fight when he had the opportunity. It was a terrible decision by Wilder to turn the Joshua fight down. If he'd taken on Joshua and beaten him, he would be the undisputed heavyweight champion right now. All of the hype that surrounded Anthony Joshua, worldwide, not just in the UK, Wilder would have inherited that. The highlights of him knocking Anthony Joshua out would have been played over and over again on American television and American networks. He would be a much bigger star than he is right now if he'd taken on AJ and beaten him and become undisputed. So it was a massive missed opportunity by Deontay Wilder, a terrible decision. And if Wilder had any sense, which he obviously doesn't, but if he did have any sense, he'd be taking a long, hard look at the people around him and saying to them, hey, why did you advise me not to take that fight? Why did you advise me to turn down all these deals? You know? And again, this revelation by Steven Espinoza is indicative of Deontay Wilder's lack of comparative market value, his relative market value. He should be worth way more than this. Deontay Wilder should be in a position where different networks in the United States are fighting to try and get his signature to be on their pay-per-view platform. That's what should be happening. But instead, it's not. You know, I've heard this argument from American boxing fans mainly, that the only reason why boxing in the UK is as popular as it is and people like AJ, etc., are as big as they are, is because in the UK there's no competition for boxing. There are no other sports. It's just boxing and football, and that's it. I mean, that's completely untrue. Now, Britain doesn't have as many sports as the United States, which are popular, but the United States is a much bigger country. But Britain has still got plenty of sports which are popular. Football's popular, rugby's popular, motorsport is popular, tennis is very popular. You know, obviously I said football, boxing. I mean, even MMA is popular in the UK. There are many, many sports that are popular in the UK. Cricket even still has a big following. So the real and an example actually of how what they're saying is not true is the fact that MMA is so popular in the United States. How is it that MMA is doing great in America, but boxing isn't? How's that possible? Because it's a combat sport, just like boxing. It's the same kind of market. Yeah, MMA fans are a different set of fans, but there are many fans who cross over from MMA to boxing. There are many people who are fans of both. I see that in my boxing group all the time. So what is boxing in America doing wrong, which MMA is doing right? Yeah. If you do it the right way, you can have household names in boxing in America. And if it was so easy in the UK to make stars all the time and have this thriving boxing scene, why didn't Frank Warren do it prior to Eddie Hearn coming on the scene? Because boxing was in the dark ages prior to Eddie Hearn taking over Matchroom Boxing and having this exclusive deal with Sky. Boxing was in the dark ages in Britain. I mean, Hearn was scraping by in the early days by putting on prize fighter tournaments all the time. There was hardly any big shows. And again, that's coming out of the old Frank Warren era when he was the top promoter. It was dead. All right? So if it was that easy, Frank Warren would have done it. It ain't that easy. You need the right talent. You need the right strategy. Yeah, boxing in the early 2000s in Britain, I showed a Wikipedia article which showed where boxing was in relation to other sports in Britain. And it was about 9th or 10th most popular sport in Britain in the early 2000s. Now it must be in the top 3 most popular sports in Britain. Football is still far more popular than boxing in Britain today. But boxing is not too far behind. It might be 2 or 3. In America, boxing used to be very popular. You know, top 5 sports in America in the 80s. Maybe even up until the 90s. But today, it's doing horrible. Let's be real. And the way that boxing is marketed, the way that the fighters are promoted, etc., it all needs to be overhauled. I'm going to do a separate video on what I think the future of boxing needs to be, not only in America, but worldwide in terms of taking the sport to the next level for the consumer. I'm going to do a separate video about that. But yeah, for now, I'll just leave you guys with my thoughts on Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz being rejected, turned down by Showtime. They don't think it's financially viable. What has gone wrong in the promotion of Deontay Wilder's career that he's still struggling to sell himself as a pay-per-view fighter to networks after all these years as champion? After all these rivalries, I mean, Wilder was talking about doing 2 million pay-per-view sales for the Tyson Fury rematch. How many tickets did Tyson Fury sell for the Otto Wallen fight? Was it something like 3,000 tickets and gave away the rest as comps? Wilder is getting rejected by Showtime for a pay-per-view on their network against Ortiz. The first fight was a great fight. It's not like he's fighting a dud. He's fighting a legit guy. And they're rejecting it. What's going on with Deontay Wilder's career, man? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.